What is up, my friends? It is time for another Reflections from the Front Seat. You know what? I don't need my seatbelt on. I found myself a nice little parking spot here in a parking lot in Hebron, Kentucky. And I wanted to talk to you today about a decision that I'm going to start writing again. I was almost ready to title this, I think I want to start writing again. But that's not accurate. In fact, this all was good, believe it or not, this all started out not as a Facebook Live, but as a journal post here in my iPad. By the way, I am loving my iPad Pro 11-inch. And inside of my iPad, I started a day one journal entry, and I'm going to show you right here at the top of it. Actually, let me scroll to the top here. See that right there? It says, let's see here. I want to start writing. And then it says, again. All right. I want to start writing again. The original like the things that I'm going to be talking about here in this Facebook live stream, I started journaling. I was going to create a written post inside of my Day One app about my desire to start writing again. And then I just freaking got stuck writing with the limitations and the drawbacks that come with writing. So first off, for me, I like to write. I do love to write. I forgot about the fact that I love to write, but I do love to write. I love to communicate. I love to share things that I've experienced, things that I've learned, successes, failures, just anything. I love to share with people. I love to contribute to others. I love to grow personally. And when I growing personally, growing professionally, learning something new, there is no joy in that alone unless I have the opportunity to share it with somebody else. It's just how I'm wired. And well before I ever knew about podcasting, and well before there was all this live streaming where I could do this without the grammar Nazis and all that other stuff in place, I used to be a writer. I used to write a lot. And I got out of the habit. And for some reason, I forgot that I used to love to write. So that's what I want to share with you today. First of all, why am I doing this here as a Facebook live stream? Why did I start this as a written journal entry inside of my Day One app, and I'm now doing this as a Facebook Live? Well, here's the reason. Well, at my home right now, there are two nephews in the house, two little boys. You know, those little people are in the house, and little people make lots of noise. My wife is working on a special project with her sister. And when her sister comes over, she brings her little boys. And those little boys, as well as with our little puppy, you add it's a cocktail for lots of noise. So my home is not a peaceful place right now. I love my home. We have a beautiful home, and 99.9% of the time, it is the exact atmosphere I love. But then occasionally little people show up, and it's not necessarily an atmosphere conducive for the type of distraction-free environment that I like. And my wife happens to be doing this project in what's called our bonus room, which is right above our office. And so if they scoot the chair, that's right above my office. This is a room that is very rarely ever used. And so I'm in a unique situation where if I were to want to sit down and write, doing that in the house, or at least in my office, is not really all that. Yeah, it's not happening. I could go up to our bedroom, and I have these little reading chairs and stuff like that. But I guess I could probably pull out the little lap desk thing or whatever. But it's not what I wanted. So for whatever reason, I'm thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a restaurant, and I'm just going to go somewhere, order something small, get one of those places where they'll refill your drink over and over again. I'll leave a hefty tip. But it's Saturday evening. I want to choose a place that's kind of quiet. And so here in Hebron, Kentucky, there's this Skyline Chili. I looked and there was hardly anybody in the parking lot, and I'm like, this is awesome. This will be great. And so I go in and it's relatively quiet, and I get started on my project. Then they bring me my food and I eat my food, and I get back on my writing project. And I was making some good progress. And then this family of 10 shows up. 10 people show up, and they are asking the wait staff to put 6 tables together. And the next thing you know, my peaceful writing environment has been bombarded. So I'm like, okay, I know what I'll do. I will put my earbuds in. I'm going to turn on my focus at will, and I'm going to drown out the noise. And no, it wasn't happening. It was just like, I can't concentrate here. So I packed up my iPad Pro and decided, it's like, well, what can I do? What is there another place between here that I could go into? And so, no, I don't like that. Anyway, that's why I'm here now. So I want to share something with you guys. I used to write a lot. This is something very few people know about me. But I've been into computers ever since I was a little kid. I put my first computer together when I was 8 years old. And I'm going to read this quote, this comment from Karen Wilson. She says, "Bonus room." I love that name. "Cliff, you need some noise canceling headphones." I have noise canceling headphones, but I didn't think to take those with me. I thought that I might be able to find a place to go. But even then, noise canceling headphones wouldn't have drowned out this family of 10. Hello, Chad Addy. All right. So, 8 years old, I taught myself how to program BASIC in computer programming language. I absolutely loved computers. And when I was in high school, they had a typing class. Only girls took typing back then. I don't know why, but it just seemed to be only girls took typing. However, I signed up for the typing class. I was like, listen, I want to learn how to type. And so A, S, D, F, J, K, L, semi, and, blah, 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 blah. And I taught myself, I trained myself to type. And I am an incredibly fast typist. I don't remember what my words per minute was, but I don't even know if it's was it 80 something, 90 words per minute, 120 words per, I have no idea. I'm a fast typist though. And I'm a fairly accurate typist as well. I can not only type fast, but I can type accurately without ever looking at the keyboard. So I took typing in class, and I remember the earliest days of connecting with people when actually it was before the internet. Well, at least before the public internet as we know it today. I would use my computer, hook it up to a telephone modem. This is back in the day when you had the headset telephone, and you would put the telephone handset device into this thing, and it would dial up 300 baud per second. And you could dial into what's called a BBS, a bulletin board service, or a bulletin board system. And your computer and that computer would use the telephone line at 300 baud per second. It would communicate with one another through this language that it could, anyway. And I would go in, and it had discussion forums, and you could actually type in messages to people and say, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And then you would have to log off so somebody else could call it. You would have to hang up so somebody else could call in. Many of these BBS systems only had one telephone line. There were a couple super fancy ones that had multiple telephone lines, like 2 telephone lines or 4 telephone lines, so that 2 or 4 people could be signed in at a time. These were fun days. And I remember I used to communicate using BBS forum software with people all over the world. And that was the first way that I connected with people outside of my geographic region. And then, of course, by the time I was in college, I was at NKU, and you could log into the actual internet. I mean, like the real full. Oh, by the way, before then, I was on AOL 1.0 on Windows 3.0. This wasn't Windows 3.1, it was Windows 3.0, and you installed it on 5.25-inch floppies. I mean, this is old day stuff. So this is back when America Online was still monochrome, and you could sign into what were called instant chat rooms. And those were fun. So I remember communicating just via the typed written word. That was lots of fun when it was interactive in real time. And then then I went to college, and then I could log into the real internet. And the real internet back then allowed you to have what's called an internet email address. And we used this protocol called Pine, P-I-N-E. And I had a nku.edu email address or whatever, so that I could log in and use Pine to email people. And I could use anybody else who gave me their email address. And I fell in love with the idea of communicating to emails, and I found ways that you could actually create email lists. This is before there was email list software like what we have today, but I would create lists and groups of people that I could email and broadcast messages out to. I mean, just really fun stuff. And it was 1996 that I learned about HTML. Now, I don't know how long HTML had been around, but I started to hear about this language, this code called HTML, where you could have a graphical interface to the internet. You could actually have a static website that's yours, and people could type in a URL and they would land on your website. And this could be hosted for free on services like, I think back in the day I used angelfire.com, which, by the way, I just learned, don't go to angelfire.com today, because it takes you to Adult Finder or something like that. So, but back in the day, it was like angelfire.com/ky/Ravenscraft. And that anything that was in that folder on that server was mine. And if you knew how to do it, you could hand code your own index file, your HTML or index.html. And you could drop that on a folder, and boom, I could put my own website up. And if I wanted to, I could actually link that file into other files. Like, I don't know, I could do archive.html, which is a page that has links to different dates and months. And I would actually create my own, what essentially today is called blogging software. This is way before anything was ever called a blog. Back then we called them web journals. So I started journaling on the internet on my own website. And I loved it. I used to spend hours on a weekly basis, many hours every week, creating web journal content or journaling on the internet. And I loved that. I loved it so much. And then occasionally I would take that and I would also broadcast out to some email groups for people who said that they would love to receive this in their email inbox. This is back in the day when actually receiving an email you looked forward to. So I used to be a writer. I used to write a lot. And I also, at one point, was working towards becoming a published author. I was thinking about writing a book. At the time, it was going to be a ministry-related book about how to operate and facilitate small groups that are meant to encourage others through Christ inside of traditional-based church models. And in fact, it was actually going to be the cell church model within a traditional church system or something like that. I was connected with some of the main essential leaders within what was known of the cell church movement at the time. Joel Comiskey. I also, Robert, what was his name? Ralph Neighbor Jr. and Paul Youngie. Anyway, I was very well connected in this space, and I was blogging about it consistently, had a very loyal following in this space, and I was encouraged, you should write a book. You should definitely write a book. And so I was taking classes on writing a book. I was being coached by other authors on writing a book and all this other stuff, but then something happened that changed my life forever. I discovered the world of audio podcasting. I discovered there was an opportunity for me to get behind a microphone and speak what's on my mind without editing, re-editing, proofreading, all of that other stuff that goes into writing. I could just use my voice and just speak out what it is that I want to say. And I could put it out as an audio podcast. And well, fast forward today, I've produced I think I'm almost around 40 different podcast shows that I've done over the years. There's been Pursuing a Balanced Life, Encouraging Others Through Christ, the Almost Daily Devotional, Help I Got a Mac, Business Tech Weekly, Social Media Serenity, the Hunger Games podcast, the Lost podcast. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on, the number of podcasts that I've done over all these years. And I'm well over 4,000 podcast episodes. That's well over 4,000 hours of me speaking into a microphone, putting my voice, my message out into the world. And it comes naturally to me. Now, I'm able to communicate in a much more powerful way today than I did in the early days. I mean, I'm able to communicate with you here without feeling the need to fill every single moment with sound. So I'm not actually saying every other sentence. It's not important that I do that. So it's been an incredible journey of enjoying the ability to just talk and speak and have that be recorded and published out into the world. And to know that I have backup audio recordings. I have archives of every piece of audio content I've ever produced. I have them all on my Dropbox files. I have external drives filled with them. They're backed up to the cloud. They're also, in one way, shape, form, or another, they're not all easy to find, and that's intentional, by the way. But everything I've ever published publicly is still available online via the internet somewhere, some way. Not everything is still available in a podcast RSS feed, but pretty much still to this day, until I choose to remove them, some old web properties offline, everything I've ever produced is still available even via the internet. That's pretty incredible. And those thousands of episodes, there's stuff that I produced more than a decade ago that are still getting listened to today. I think that's awesome. But there's one problem. Not everybody likes to listen to audio as much as I do. Not everybody enjoys listening to the spoken word. There are some people who say, listen, ain't nobody got time for that. I read 5 times more faster than you can speak it to me. And even if you tell me, yeah, well, you could just go ahead and put it on 2x or 2.5x speed and play back super fast. At some point, it actually isn't legible. And they tell me that I still read much faster than you could speak. Same is true for video. I mean, I love the fact that, at least with video, I'm able to create content such as this. There are some of you who are watching live, some of you who may be watching the replay of this. If I choose to put this on YouTube, it may show up there. Who knows? I could even take the audio from this video Facebook live stream, pull the audio out by itself, and put it out as a podcast episode. Super convenient stuff. I don't have to go find a quiet restaurant and stuff like that. I can just sit here and give you a reflection from the front seat. See, this stuff is super convenient for me. But there are those of you who are watching this video or may potentially be listening to the podcast audio content that I put out into the world. And that's wonderful, but I am completely missing an entire audience of people who prefer to read content. Now, part of me is like, who really enjoys reading? Because for the longest time, I've not found myself as one who really enjoys reading. I do read. I actually read quite a bit more than I ever dreamt that I would today, but it's only about things that I'm super passionate about, and I don't read fast. I do consider it to be a nuisance to actually read. It's not a convenient way for me to consume content, and therefore I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, but there are even drawbacks to listening to audiobooks. There are things that I might miss that I wouldn't miss if I were actually reading from Kindle or a physical book or whatever the case may be. So the thing is, though, a lot of people out there prefer reading. I'm not one of them. You probably, if you're watching this video, if you've listened to a lot of my content, you may not be one of them either. There are a few people, I guess maybe about 20-30% of the people that I've met actually like to consume content in any form whatsoever. But most people, they either like the visual, they prefer the audio, or they prefer the written word, and that's just mainly where they go to for their content consumption. So to know that I'm missing that audience is a challenge. There's also different ways. I think there's something in the way that people think about written word versus audio and or video. There are some cases where a piece of audio content can be seen as an evergreen, ongoing piece of content that is meant to live on, to be shared and stuff like that. Audio books, for example, can be that way. There are some, obviously, movies that in documentaries that can be shared and stuff like that. But when we think about just your standard audio podcast episode, it's not necessarily that one episode is going to be seen as this epic piece of content that everybody is sharing with the world. But it does seem like with the written word, those things I think they're easier to share. Now, today, audio is easier to share today than it has been in the past. Video with YouTube is super easy to share, but the written word has always been easy to share. You can literally copy and paste if you want to, or you can send a link to a static page where people can read right then and there, regardless if they're in a place where it's conducive. They can consume that content, even though they may be in a place where playing audio or a video is not necessarily acceptable, if you will. So there's benefits to the written word. There are a couple things that I forward to. For example, if you go to mindsetanswerman.com/double your rates, all is one word. Mindsetanswerman.com/double your rates. That is a blog post by Peter Shallard titled 7 Reasons Why People Want to Pay You More and Why Doubling Your Rates Will Double Your Success. I've referred thousands and thousands and thousands of people to that one blog post. That blog post is just as powerful as any book that I've ever recommended. Ann Sharpstein says, are you going to write a book? I would say the answer to that question is it's inevitable. The answer to that question is I can't imagine not writing a book. When will that happen? I have not yet decided. But it is definitely something that's coming to the forefront of my mind. It is not a project that I look forward to nearly as much as I do any other project. I do not like writing as much as I prefer creating audio and or video content. But I have found myself enjoying writing a great deal more recently. Ever since I got my iPad Pro, this 11-inch iPad Pro. And I love the convenience of having an 11-inch device. I mean, this thing is so handy. And everywhere I go, it's got a keyboard attached to it. And this keyboard is actually really good. And I can just go anywhere and just pop that in right like that. And I can type really fast on this. And I can begin to just type. I just need quiet, distraction-free places and times for me to be able to do that. And the fun part is that I got this back in December, and I have been writing every day since December 24th of last year. there's not been a single day that has gone by where I have not written. And that's just been in my personal journal. And as a result of that, there are some things that I've written in my journal that I've then shared as amazing pieces of written content in my email newsletter or with my Next Level Mastermind members in our discussion forums that we have, where I write them encouraging notes. So my phone is blowing up with all kinds of notifications. I'm going to see if I can put this in do not disturb mode so that it doesn't keep covering up my screen. But the one thing is the fact that I've just been writing these little journal posts, that I've been writing entries to document the things that are going on within my day, the things that I'm experiencing, the activities that I'm doing. I found myself becoming more intentional about how I invest my time, effort, and energy in each day. I find myself reflecting on all of the things that are going on in my life. I ask myself, what can I learn from every experience? And I'm actually logging what I'm learning, which means that I'm learning more every day. I'm growing more personally and professionally every single day. I love the fact that I'm taking less for granted. Every day I'm like, what do I have to be thankful for today? What is there to appreciate out of today? And just based upon this experience that I did, hey, this came up, I handled it this way. What on earth how could I have done that better? And I just love how it's changing my life in a powerful way, journaling each day. But then I find myself writing some of these journals and I'm like, man, this should be shared. This should be shared with my community of people who would love to read this stuff. And so today I started a journal post. It's like, I want to start writing. And then it's funny. It's like just starting that journal entry and titling it, I want to start writing. Well, that infers that I've never written before, that I've never been a writer. But then all of a sudden I'm writing my journal. It's like, actually, let me read this to you. I'm going to read to you what I wrote in my journal while I was at Skyline before this big family of 10 showed up. So I'm just going to read this to you. So it says here, I want to start writing ... And then later I added in parentheses again. Ever since I received my iPad Pro 11-inch, I've been making use of the Day One app to journal about the various things that have been happening in my day-to-day life. In fact, I've journaled every single day since Tuesday, December 24th. My journal doesn't show a streak during this entire time frame, as there have been some events that are multi-day events where I've logged an entire event within a single journal post. For example, I just went to Social Media Marketing World. I experienced 3 days of that conference, and I journaled about all 3 days in an ongoing single post inside of my journal, which is an incredible post, by the way, inside of here, the things that I journaled from that event. Anyway, setting streaks in an app is not really something that I strive for. However, I love to pursue things that cause me to grow personally and professionally. Journaling my daily activities and experiences has certainly led to a significant amount of growth, as I am noticing so much more and choosing to be far more intentional about how I invest my time, effort, and energy each day. I notice more things that I have to be thankful for. Therefore, I'm taking less and less for granted these days. I'm evaluating the experiences in my life, life in such a way that I now find myself asking, what can I or have I learned from this experience? In fact, just creating the title of this journal is a lesson within itself. I started out with the title, I want to start writing. It was only after I started writing that I added again in parentheses to the title. I doubt that many people who know me today know that I used to be an avid writer. In fact, I started out as a quote-unquote blogger when it comes to internet content. I'm reminded of this when I created my first website, which was a series of hand-coded HTML files. I believe it was 1996. And that, my friends, is where I left off. That's when this family was just starting to get really loud after they got all the tables situated. And I was like, okay, let's really, really be loud in this restaurant. And then I left. So anyway, I'm writing, And I'm thinking, I want to start doing this. And I think I heard something so first of all, I've always been a writer. I've been a writer ever since I started with the keyboard. I do find, though, that when I write, I want to be very specific with the details. So, for example, I think it was 1996. And so I actually went and found myself searching to see if I can find the old archives of that in the Wayback Machine. And I want to pull in all of this stuff and all this supporting evidence and all of these things. And I find that I do that when I'm writing. For whatever reason, I find myself wanting to be more perfect and more precise and stuff like that. Whereas when I'm creating content like this, I'm like, let me just share with you what I can instantly recall. I don't need everything to be accurate and to the point and stuff like that. As long as I basically tell the story here, that's what matters. And I suppose that's possible to do it that way when I'm writing, but I find that I actually want to go research stuff and bring it in and bring in all that stuff. Anyway, where am I going to go with this? There is something about writing that I think is powerful. And I also know that when communicating to people on my email list, surprisingly, there are my email newsletter, which, by the way, you can go to cliffravenscraft.com and sign up for my email newsletter. It's really awesome. I promise you. This is not an internet marketing email newsletter where it's not one of those things. The stuff that I share in my email newsletter is extremely powerful stuff. And I don't put anything in there that isn't important. But if you sign up for my newsletter, the first 23, 27, 30 something weeks is all video content for the most part. So it starts out as a video post for my vlog, and then I write a little paragraph to set it up to kind of convince you of why it's valuable to watch that video. But then after the video, I put a little bullet point list of all of the main points that I made in the video, just in case you have no interest in watching the video. Just, at least you get some kind of nugget of value out of this email that I've sent you from my newsletter. That's a majority of my email newsletters. However, there are a few emails within the sequence of my email newsletter that are very long emails. I'm talking like, wow, I spent an entire day writing that email. Now, most of that was proofreading it, editing it, all that other stuff. But I mean, it's like, man, if I had to guess, who would ever read this? I know that if I got this in an email, I don't think in a million years, I can maybe only think of maybe 2 people on the planet that if they were to write an email in their newsletter and put that in my email inbox, that I would read that from beginning to end. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that I would do that every day from those people either. But that's the thing. I just don't enjoy reading as much as the average person. However, those really long emails that are written out, they may actually have something that is equal of value as far as the content and the message that's being shared from any of the videos that I've published in my newsletter. But man, a fully written out, like, let's just say if you were to print it out, on your printer, it might have turned out to be about 4, 5, or 6 pages worth of print. All right. Very long email. Inevitably, every single time I put out one of those emails to my newsletter, they get the most response. I get the most number of replies. It's like, wow, that was powerful. Blah, blah. It's like, seriously, you read all of that? Wow. You read, but then I think about it, it's like, wait a second. Okay, so what did that take? It took me an entire day to write it. It probably took them about 25 minutes to read it if they really read it through all the way in the way that it was meant to be shared. It might have been a little bit less. But then I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, wait a second, but Cliff, every single week you put out a podcast episode that's usually an average of about an hour. So you're shocked that somebody would spend 25 minutes reading 5 pages worth of a written email that you spent 8 hours creating, but you have no problem understanding that people are spending just over an hour to listen to an audio podcast that you spent about 45 minutes preparing and just over an hour recording. Why? Yeah. So, and by the way, I've just come to that realization live right here on the spot. That's an interesting to think about. It's very interesting to think about. Let me ask you this. There are a few of you who are watching right now. If you were a part of my email newsletter, would you read extremely long written emails from me with some of my thoughts and stories of things that I'm experiencing in my life and in my business, the goals that I've set for myself, the ones that I've achieved, and what I learned about how I gained that success, the ones where I have failed and failed miserably, and what I've learned from those experiences as well? Would that be the kind of content that you would be interested in? And so let me know in the comments. And by the way, I'm not just talking about those of you who are watching live. If you're watching this on the replay, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you I don't know, if I happen to share this in audio form, in the podcast, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and tell me, would you be interested in more written content? Karen says, I would skim read, then dive in if compelled. Well, I can promise you this, Karen, if it were something that I write, I would write something compelling. I do believe that. John Harrell says, absolutely would read that. And I saw Ann Sharpstein. I did see your note above that said that if I write a book, it would be a bestseller. No doubt. You know what? Here's my thoughts about a bestseller. I don't know that it would be a bestseller. And I don't know that I would care about it being a bestseller. And the reason why is because I know enough of my friends who have written best-selling books. And I know what they had. By the way, Johnny says, yes, I like the longer emails, but I read the headers first, then the body. Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, and that's one thing I do know about a written piece of communication. I've got to really sell it with the title of the post, and I've really got to start it off and grab the interest. And it has to be a really compelling, valuable piece of content also. I'm going to come back to there's a bunch of comments coming in, so I'm going to read these. And then I'll come back to this bestseller thing. Tom says, potentially depending on the frequency. Yes, I agree with that. Reading is active, AV is passive consumption. Totally agree with you. That's exactly why I love audio content. I can listen to it while I'm driving, while I'm walking the dog, while I'm doing the dishes. I mean, there's so many things. Absolutely, totally, 100% agree with that, Tom. That's a great reminder. Thank you for that. Ann says, I like reading and listening to everything you create, although I really love listening to you because I can consume... Oh, hold on. I don't want to close the thing. I want to hit see more. Can I hit see more on Ann's comment? There we go. Although I really love listening to you because I can consume that content more easily no matter what I'm doing, cooking, exercising, etc. Awesome. Thank you for that. And Stefan. Okay. All right. So I'm caught up on the comments. Let me see if I can put some lights on in here now. The sun is starting to set. So this idea of a best-selling book. Okay. So the whole idea of the best-selling book. I've got friends who are best-selling authors, many of them. And I know what they went through, the effort and energy, and in some cases the expense to make it happen. And when I think of bestseller, I only really think about maybe the New York Times bestseller, and then maybe the Wall Street Journal bestseller. And I don't know that I really count the Amazon top thing, because that's those algorithms can be gamed pretty easily and stuff like that. But I don't know that here's what I think. I do not have the active engagement of a community the size that is necessary for me to reach like New York Times bestseller status. And I also don't have the desire, at least right now in my life, to do the activities required to get there. Like, for example, the idea of me showing up on, 50 to 100 top ranked podcasts, getting that message out and stuff like that. Man, I started going down that road to help promote Free the Dream. And while it was successful in getting the word out, it just wasn't in alignment with the type of life that I feel called to live. It just like, man, I was just burning the candle at both ends of the stick. Ken says, hi, your lighting is still good without the light. Your fails might be insightful and different to hear from. Let me see if I can click from others. Awesome. And Stefan says, pre-sell and self-publish. Your added value on audio video content would prompt me and others to read your content. I believe your writing could fuel your AV audience. Go for it. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to do writing. I'm going to go back and start doing more writing. I've already got I'm writing every day in my journal, but I think what I'm going to begin doing is I'm going to start writing in my journal as if I will copy and paste those written entries into potentially a blog, potentially as Facebook posts, potentially as articles on LinkedIn, and in my email newsletter. It's like, get this message out there to those readers of the world. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about that. And not that everything's going to be super long form, but what I love about this also is that it can also be the kickoff point of writing all this stuff out, and it can be a great outline in preparation for me to create some audio and video content as well. And I heard a quote recently. It was a friend that I had just met in San Diego. I want to show you something that I did in San Diego with my day one journal. So I'm going to pull this up here. And by the way, I did this just for you guys. Before I went live on Facebook, I did reverse the screen so you guys could see this the right way. And so I'm going to open up my iPad here. I'm going to open up my day one journal. And I want to go to Social Media Marketing World 2020. And I'm going to open this up full screen here. So this is my Social Media Marketing World. And what you'll see here as I scroll down, I took pictures of all the people I met. And then afterwards, later in the day, I imported all those selfies and I made notes of all the people, of all the important things that I remembered from our conversations. And I plan on following up with these people. So I love this journal. And why was I showing you that? I don't remember. Yeah, just lost it. Anyway, the thing is I'm going to start writing inside of my iPad, my day one app. I'm going to start sharing more written content. I think that was pretty much all I was going to say. I think that's it. Stephanie should write a book too. I would read hers as well. Yeah, I would love for her to read that's what. I know why I pulled this out. Hold on. There had to be a reason why I pulled out my day one app, and I was showing you my social media. And it's like, okay, hold on. I know what it was, so I'm going to go here, and I want to click on this person's. Oh, hold on. I have to open up day one. And now I know exactly what I was going to share with you. I promise you, it will be worth it when you hear what the advice this guy said. And he heard this from Zig Ziglar. Hold on, I'm going to find out who told me this. Scott McKain. All right, this right here. Oh, how did I just do that? There we go. Right here. Scott McKain. He told me about a conversation that I believe he had with Zig Ziglar. Scott McKain is a professional public speaker. He's been speaking professionally since 1981. He's part of the National Speaker Association. And he was telling me about a story of Zig Ziglar. And he sat there, he's like, I just don't know if I could ever write a book and stuff like that. And you've written so many books. And Zig Ziglar responded, he says, you want to know what? I've never written a book. And he's like, what are you talking about? You've got tons of books. Because I've never written a book. Instead, what I've decided to do is that I would wake up every morning and write 3 pages. I would wake up every morning and write 3 pages worth of content. Doesn't matter what it is, but every day I'm going to show up and write 3 pages worth of content. And then eventually I would do that for so many days in a row that somebody on my team would say, you know what, Zig, I think you've got a book there. And he had said, you know what, I think you're right. And so they would take that 3 pages a day every day and take that content and send it off to the editor, and they would edit it into a book. And that's how Zig Ziglar got around to writing his books. That's just a story that I remember hearing, and it's just something that I just vaguely remember the details of it. But something, of course, it's like, listen, I don't have to write a book right now. It's not essential that I have to write a book. But man, I could start writing. And then I got to thinking, it's like, man, what if, I don't necessarily know that I want to go and transcribe all the audio, but man, just think about how many books I've written. If you think about all of the content that I've shared over the years, over 4,000 hours of me communicating to the world, telling stories, sharing insights that I've learned, and teaching concepts. Over 4,000 hours of my voice on the internet. There's a couple books in there. Anyway, but just pulling that out and sending it off, had those been written words, I can see where there's a lot of power in being able to easily pull a bunch of shorter posts. And one of my favorite books, as far as the format is concerned, there was a book by Jason Fried. He's a guy who started a company called 37 Signals, he's the owner of Basecamp. I still use Basecamp today for my project management, or actually for discussion forums with folks. But anyway, Jason Fried wrote a book called Rework, and it's nothing more than a collection of blog posts. And Seth Godin has written a number of books. Stephen Holt says 10 at least bestsellers. Yes, he's probably talking about Zig Ziglar. But anyway, so yeah, that's I'm going to start writing again. I have started writing again. And I'm going to begin to start sharing a lot more of what I've been writing. First and foremost with members of my Next Level Mastermind, some of the deeper, more personal stuff with those folks. Some other stuff that's eligible for a little bit more of the public eye, I will publish into my email newsletter. I may also syndicate it out on my Facebook personal profile, put it out as LinkedIn articles, all of that stuff. So if you guys want to get some of that newsletter content, if you're not already on my email newsletter, sign up for my email over at cliffravenscraft.com. And the first, 20 some odd weeks, it's going to be a lot of links to the videos with an explanation of that content there. I promise you this, if it's still in my email newsletter, and I routinely go through there and delete things out that I don't think are as pertinent today as when I first shared them. So you're only going to get valuable stuff, and you get 1 email per week every week on Monday morning until you get caught up to where I haven't got anything in there recently. So, but those of you who haven't gotten an email in quite a while because you've been caught up and I haven't published anything new, expect a little bit more written content coming your way. I'm excited about writing again. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Guys, thank you so much for following my journey. Thank you so much for hearing my voice. I know that my sharing my story, one thing that I've learned about sharing my story, and one reason why I've come to accept the fact that I share and talk about my story, my journey a lot, is because I've learned that when you hear me talk about my story, you're actually not processing it as, oh my gosh, I'm focused on everything and about how awesome Cliff is or what's going on in Cliff. Cliff's the most important thing in my life. But what I've learned is what's happening for you when you hear my voice telling my story, telling you about what I'm experiencing. You're allowing yourself to resonate with what resonates with you. and you're filtering what I'm experiencing through what you've experienced. And by telling you what I've experienced as far as shifts in my mindset, it's helping shift your mindset. And I've really come to understand the value of telling your story. Even in the face of critics who might complain that you talk about yourself a lot. I don't do it because I feel like this world needs to know how awesome I am. Trust me, I have my own hang-ups about all kinds of stuff, but I do realize the value of sharing with you guys what's going on in my life. And I'm thrilled that you guys are even interested. And more importantly, I'm thrilled that you're taking these insights and allowing it to soak in and helping you shape how you see the world in a different way. Until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level. Bye-bye.